do get a little circulation from the air conditioner. Welcome to our Solutions from the Land side event here. And let me give you the title of this event because it's a great title. There it is right there, Circular Bioeconomy Systems for Concurrently Delivering Solutions to Climate Change, Biodiversity Loss, and Food Security. We've always believed in the eco-benefits that come when we work collaboratively and not in our silos. And we start to see that in these days, there's so many new ways to think, new ways to have a conversion of thinking with a cascade of new technologies, new ways of coming together, and new urgencies as well. Certainly here at UNEA-6, there's every reason to know that there's urgency. There's every reason to know that when you can showcase proof of concept, that new ideas are changing the way you might think about different kind of forms of production, different solutions that are coming forward at the same time. We can show that there's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm of how agriculture then is a place to go to look for solutions, as opposed to a place where people think that's where all the problems lie. And our goal today then is to definitely showcase how important it is to note that we're in the 21st century. We've been saying this a lot. That means a different century than the one before us. It is a renaissance of thinking that's taking place, if you will. And I always give the simple example. My good friend who's 98 years old, born in 1925. He retired from farming 2 years ago. He knows the names of his horses that he used to plow his fields with as a young teenager. That this is in Southern California. That's to say, in the early 1930s, the tractor had not shown up in Southern California. And today we're talking about growing food on the moon. So you tell me, in the span of a single man's lifetime, isn't that amazing how the world is changing so fast that we talk about transformation of agriculture, and we might want to have a handhold on it or put a thumbprint on it. But it's changing so fast, just when you think you know what's going on in ag, something new comes along, some game-changing thought process, some game-changing technology, and we're just holding on, all of us going along for the ride. It doesn't mean it's a smooth ride, and it doesn't mean that it's not a ride with a lot of trial and error. But I think the most important thing is whether it's the government that can step up and help, whether it's private industry that can step up and show the government that they're either going to help us or get in the way. These are the challenges we face, and yet there's no right or wrong. We keep on saying there's no silver bullet here on how we solve the challenges of the triple crisis. There's no silver bullet that's going to come and say we have to do it this one way on all continents and all kinds of commodities and all kinds of crop systems. So we have recognized that we're focused on having a toolbox, a dynamic, robust toolbox that all farmers, large and small, indigenous, whatever size it is, you want access to that toolbox. Let the farmers decide which tools they need. Let's make sure we can see that they have an idea that new ways of doing things might change the way they operate their own operations. And as a farmer myself, I know I've changed tremendously in about 45 seasons of agriculture. We didn't have horses when I was little, but we certainly didn't have some of the nice kinds of ways of looking at things, whether it's flood irrigation, furrow irrigation, all the way up to drip irrigation. So the reason I say that is hold on to your seats. We're going to have an exciting time talking about this circular bioeconomy and the new systems that are coming forth. I want to give a special thanks and a shout out to the American Society of Agriculture and Biological Farm Engineers, ASABE, and Alliance for Modernizing Africa, Agri-Food Systems, AMAAA, and say thank you so much for the support for this event. As we illustrate the innovative approaches and diversified systems ahead of us, what I'd like to do is make sure we understand that we need science, we need research, we need practitioners. And I'd like to start by having Mr. John Reed, Professor Reed, the director of the Center for Digital Agriculture at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, lead us off. He's a research professor in computer science, ag and bioengineering, and electrical and computer engineering, and he's had a wild ride watching this wave of technology move forward. So, John, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and lead us off and we'll go from there.
And great. Are you going to share my slides or am I supposed to share them? I can do it if you, I need to have the sharing turned on because it's grayed out right now.
Speak up a little bit. If you can speak up a little bit, that'd be great too. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see here if I can share. I still do not have sharing privileges.
John, can you speak up a little louder, or we'll try and turn you up in the room as well, okay?
Yeah, I'm speaking as loud as I can. Can others on the line not hear me?
Okay. Thomas, can you help us down?
My slides, I need to be able to show. Oh, here we go.
Cannot share.
Here we go.
Share the screen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here we go. Okay, thank you for the kind introduction. And it's my pleasure to be here today. Just a mic check. Can everyone hear me adequately? Thumbs up, thumbs down. It's not good, huh? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not ideally, but this is the best we can. We'll listen closely. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm going to give an introduction and overview of circular bioeconomy systems. And this is something that will be a little bit representative of the point of view that we see here in North America, in the Midwest. But I want to let you know that these principles apply globally and are important everywhere in the world. So I come from Illinois, and this is a representation of the heartland. And we have a very thriving linear bioeconomy. And what I mean by that is that it's very productive and produces lots of outputs that help us in society. But it actually has some detriments. And some of those detriments are the creation of waste in terms of materials that could potentially be used to make products that are put back on the soil or discarded. And at the same time, it also has some detriments in terms of water quality, nitrogen over application, chemicals and pesticides. So we're thinking very deeply about creating a circular bioeconomy in this ecosystem. And just as an example, we have lots of farmland with lots of land coverage. And this is a significant area because it produces 53% of the corn receipts in North America, 45.6% of the soybeans, and 24.5% of the wheat. And this region actually is economically linked to the people and society. As an example, 6% of the gross domestic product and approximately 2.2 million jobs are in food and agriculture in this region. So, and so this is a significant area. And while I'm talking about this, we're thinking about the conversion of this to a large-scale circular bioeconomy. And the advantages of doing that will be creating opportunities for economic growth and workforce development, and also developing innovations that affect this region, but also affect the world. And I just want to say that similar opportunities for creating this impact exist across other viable systems all around the world. So what do we mean by circular bioeconomy? And this diagram is a representation of the different elements of it. And it starts with production and growing crops. And then it links to food and bioproducts and fuel production. And then it eventually gets to the consumer. And in a linear bioeconomy, we take these inputs and we kind of go around the perimeter and then we consume the food or use it in our life, and then we have disposal of waste. The difference with a circular bioeconomy is that we look for opportunities to recover resources at all steps of the process, so that we try to reuse things that we used to throw away and dispose of in the system. And that can come from recovered carbon that can be put into the food production, or fugitive resources that come out of food and bioprocess and are conserved and used for other purposes. For example, maybe use them for nutrient reuse in precision agriculture. So if you look at this diagram, it's actually a very complex system of systems. We're all interconnected together. And there are elements to start. It starts with making improvements in production agriculture or precision agriculture to drive circularity. And there's also opportunities in using regenerative agricultural approaches, and these need to evolve and develop. I think I also want to make a point that what makes this possible today in this complex systems is that we have the ability through technology, like digital technologies, to follow the information as it goes through the system and try to drive circularity across the entire ecosystem. So as an example, what we want to do ideally is, if we create circularity in agriculture production, we'd like that circularity to continue all the way to food production and also continue all the way to consumer. But it's something that's difficult to track and trace, and it takes some integration and information for us to understand that. Okay, so our vision is that we transform from a linear bioeconomy that exists today. It delivers tremendous productivity, but we transition this to a productive but circular bioeconomy that does three things. One is that we look for opportunities to either reduce, recycle, or reuse waste productively. We think about optimizing the production systems. We still would like to have strong outputs from these systems. And the third element is we look for opportunities to displace fossil fuels with renewables. It doesn't mean we eliminate fossil fuels, but we're trying to drive circularity across the entire system. So to do this, it's going to take some investment. And the investments start with research, use-inspired research at universities across the world. But we also have to keep this research producing, but get it out of the laboratory and into practice. So we also need secondary research that transforms us into something that helps the farmers and the consumers and the industries. And then finally, this is a change from the way we do things today. So there is going to be an opportunity to create new jobs and new workforce, and we have to prepare that workforce for this future circular bioeconomy. Secondly, there are some areas of research that are critically important. And in the previous slide, I showed some examples. We need to think about circularity in precision farming and the opportunities for regenerative agriculture. We move into the food and bioprocessing, and we understand food processing today and the opportunity to recover resources there. But we also want to manufacture new things from the things that we grow. So there's going to be opportunities for creating new value-added products for society from things that we grow in agriculture. And then there's a lot of opportunity for understanding how to recover resource and how to scale it. And I'll talk about that in a minute again. And then, as I mentioned, we have to make this work all the way through the system. So from farm to market, and we have to be able to follow that information to understand that we're achieving the circularity, and then try to use that to optimize the supply chain. So innovation is required across this entire ecosystem. And some examples is in precision and regenerative ag, we have the opportunity to use data to drive outcomes. For example, sustainable precision agriculture that helps us optimize the processes, the machine systems, and manage power more sustainably. And then a second aspect is how digital agriculture can enable this traceability from the um, from the from the farm all the way to the consumer. On this side, we talk about creating value-added products in the food and biofuel and bioproduct production side. We can aggregate these waste streams that come from the outputs of other processes and use them to scale and produce new products. And there's many novel approaches that need to be developed that convert what we call waste today to new products that we can use in life. And then on this side, innovative resource recovery is looking at this aspect and thinking about recovering resources. We know we need to understand this opportunity space. Today, many of these resources are put into landfills or discarded. And we have to understand how we can make new things from them and also how to aggregate them and collect them. And then also accelerate our learning on viable approaches that help us recover these resources, which helps us scale. And finally, we have to have a mindset of circularity. This requires educating the consumer and the public. It requires new methods that quantify the benefits and the challenges of circularity. What does it mean to have circularity at the farm in terms of the inputs that the farmer uses and maintaining that circularity in the outputs all the way to the consumer? And finally, we need to prepare for these future career paths. And that's going to be education that starts at for very young learners into college, into postgraduate, and even adult retraining to prepare them for these future career paths in circularity. So my last slide is a quote from George Washington Carver from the 1930s. I love this quote because he said, "I believe that the great creator has put ores and oil on this earth to give us a breathing spell. And as we exhaust them, we must be prepared to fall back on our farms, which are God's true storehouse." So in general, this is to put this together, we need to learn to synthesize materials for everything that humans need from things that we grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. And as you are founding chair of the ASABE Circular Bioeconomy Systems Institute, we were talking about how quickly things are changing in our world and how quickly we have that difference of saying, let's do a think tank or let's do a do take. And there's a quote that goes to Washington Carver that says, "You cannot plow a field by turning it over in your mind." And we recognize that a lot of times we just have to get our hands dirty. And we're going to talk to a couple of our grower producers here, because it's one thing to be conceptual, it's another thing to have real life active examples, proof of concept, if you will, out on the farm level. I'm going to introduce our first farmer. It's Margaret Winini here to my right here, and she's an entrepreneur, business leader, and philanthropist. Margaret is the CEO and co-founder of Palm House Dairies here in Kenya and processes over 7,000 liters of milk daily. Margaret has grown the business from one cow to having now more than 500 smallholder farmers, mostly women, working in her business. Margaret holds a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture from the University of Nairobi and a Master's in Crop Protection from Bath University. Margaret, let's hear what's going on your farm, on your farm. Get ready. Ready? Go ahead.
Good afternoon to everybody. I have been introduced. My name is Margaret Munene. I am a Kenyan, and I farm in central Kenya, which is not very far from where we are, for those that are not Kenyans. Just to give you a little background about Farmhouse Dairies. Farmhouse Dairies is a dairy processing company that is 25 plus years old. We started as farmers, and like it was said, we started with one cow because basically we wanted good milk for our children. And the cows, as you all know, cows multiply. And within no time, we had a lot of cows and we had a lot of milk that we could consume. And therefore, we started selling the milk to our nearest cooperative. But when the dairy industry was liberalized in the mid-90s, we decided that it was a good opportunity for us to start a dairy processing company and therefore stop selling raw milk because we knew that processed milk would last longer, and anyhow, it is better for us to consume processed milk than raw milk. So we have a capacity of more than 10,000 liters actually, but we mainly produce between 7,000 to 8,000 liters. And we partner with 500 small-scale farmers. Majority of them, 85% actually are women. And just to emphasize that our farmers are not just farmers, our farmers are our partners. And we work on a win-win paradigm. We know when our farmers do well, we also do well. Yeah, so what are we doing in terms of improving or creating circularity in our business and for our farmers? And I will start with our farmers. So one of the things that we do is we train our farmers so that we can optimize production. And how do we do this? We have farmers ranging from farmers who give us 5 liters of milk to farmers who can give us 100 liters of milk. And what we do is periodically we have what we call farmers barazas, for the Kenyans who know Swahili, and we meet in a farmer's farm, a farmer who is doing very well. So this farmer is a role model. And we train our farmers in terms of breeding. We use AI, and we actually provide AI to our farmers through other people. And our farmers then know that when they breed their cows, that they have better daughters, they will get more milk and therefore optimize their production. We also train our farmers on good animal care and husbandry. So we teach our farmers that a cow that is well fed, a cow that is comfortable, is a cow that is happy. And a cow that is happy is a cow that will produce more milk. The other thing we do is we teach our farmers through breeding and all these things that it is better to have 5 cows that are good cows instead of having 10 cows. Because these 5 cows will most probably give them the same amount of milk that 10 cows will give them. And therefore, these cows also produce less greenhouse gas. And therefore, we are saving the environment. So training is a major thing for us. And that way we are optimizing production. Yeah. The other thing that we do is we encourage our farmers to use green energy. The fortunate thing is that most of the farmers that we work with, before they have biogas, they actually use wood. And we all know that wood is not good because we are deforesting our forest. Wood is not good for women in the kitchen. There is a lot of smoke and this is not good for them. So what we do is we connect our farmers with microcredit, and therefore they are able to save money, to borrow money. We also encourage our farmers to save through a saving scheme that we have. So with this money, they are able to have biogas plants. And with these biogas plants, then they have gas that they are able to cook with. And for us, we are happy they are able to boil water to clean the udder, and therefore we get good milk, clean milk. And so this is really, really good for our farmers because they are able then to cook their food, and it changes the dynamics of their lives. Apart from that, we encourage our farmers to use the organic manure that the cows produce. And therefore, even if they have to use fertilizer, they buy less fertilizer because they have manure. And with manure, we have better fodder, we have better maize and beans and sukuma wiki that our farmers are able to eat. And therefore, they have better nutrition for themselves and their children. And not to say that, and just also to emphasize that gas from biogas is actually very, very cheap. Okay, all right, I can listen fast. So, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Let me say that we are part of an organization called the Daily Sustainability Framework, and with the Daily Sustainability Framework, excuse my eyes and ears, we are able to do a lot of things with our farmers. And one of the things that we do is self-testing. So once we know the condition of the soils of our farmers, we are able to advise them what to do. And therefore, with this knowledge, soils are better managed, and we get higher fodder production. And this has really also helped improve the soils of our farmers. There is one tree planting. I have one more. Okay, I don't know where it is, but yeah, I'll go ahead and talk about it. We have tree planting. We provide our farmers with seedlings, two types of seedlings. One is for fruity trees, and one is for wood. So you all know that planting trees and creating forests is a wonderful thing for our environment, and therefore we encourage our farmers to do this because it helps in soil conservation, it helps in the reduction of GHS, and therefore we encourage our farmers to do this. And we actually have competitions, not just for tree planting, the farmers that have grown their trees and the ones that have grown their trees very well, we actually give awards for them. And this has been going on for a couple of years now. So to date, our farmers have fruity trees, and these fruity trees provide improve the nutrition of the family. And we have also started an income generation scheme where the avocados that we gave them like 4 years ago are ready for harvesting. And therefore, we're helping our farmers to sell their avocado trees to the people who buy these avocados for export. And therefore, we cut the middleman, because the middleman comes and buys the avocados from them for nothing. So we are able to buy these trees, these fruits directly from our farmers and take them to the exporter. And therefore, our farmers will get a better price. And actually, this is kicking off around end of April. So basically, those are the things that we are doing with our farmers to improve circularity and like somebody else said, when we involve farmers all over the world, it is the only way that we are going to improve and have a sustainable way of food production, at the same time making sure that we save the environment for ourselves and for our grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Okay, and our next speaker, talking about going from here to Kenya over to Brazil, Ana Carolina Zimmerman. Ana Carolina Zimmerman is a young Brazilian farmer rancher producing beef cattle and crops in Goyas. She was the winner of the 4th edition of CNA Youth Program. She's also a Nuffield Scholar, an organization that promotes exchanges between farmers around the world to strengthen agribusiness. Anna Carolina is passionate about bringing farmers to have a seat at the table. In 2023, she was part of the Gymnasium of the World Farmers Organization, and now she's a member of the Committee of New Leaders of the Brazilian Confederation of Livestock and Agriculture. Carolina, can you hear us? Are you there? Anna?
Good day, everyone. Can you hear me fine?
Okay, we're going to load you up here with your presentation.
I don't.
Okay, no slides.
Yeah, it's just me. Sorry, I have to confess my presentation.
There you are. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. So, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. A little bit louder, maybe. Is it okay? What about now?
Okay.
Better?
Perfect. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much for this invitation. I have a story to tell. My grandfather, the father of my dad, he had a farm in the south of Brazil. And I remember being a teenager. And I grew up mostly in the city back at the time. And he woke up early. He was taking the garbage out. And he just took the pieces of like organic waste, and then he took pieces of fruit and etc., gave it to the animals, cleaned the plastic bag, and took it back to be reused. To be very honest, at the time, I thought that it was disgusting because I was like, why doesn't he only throw away the garbage, right? That's how we do in the cities. We just throw somewhere else to people to keep doing that. But later, I realized he was using the purpose of that plastic bag was being reused, and then there's no outside the planet. We need to do that again. So I keep thinking about my grandfather when we think about circular economy. So I am a production engineer, which means I study industrial systems and etc. And when I think about linear economy, I think we have raw materials, we process them, we use them, and there's garbage. And when we think about circular economy, as Mr. Reed said before, we're talking about the circular model. And I think pretty much about the Japanese people after the post-war, when they had the concept of lean, right? So lean, it's all over the place. We've heard about lean startup, lean production systems, which basically means waste reduction. So with that in the mindset, I like to think we have a few strategies to reduce the waste that we're producing. One of them, and then I can tell what we're doing on the farms, is integrating the production, the value chain of different products and using their byproducts, as Mr. Reed was saying. So for example, we have dry distilled grains, which is DDG, some of you know, which is a byproduct of ethanol production, which is obtained from the fermentation of the corn with the starch. And this byproduct can be used with the corn to feed it, with the cattle to feed our cattle, for example. We can also use the DDG. We can also use sugarcane bagasse and also cottonseed meal. So those are all byproducts that would not be used in different industries that we can use as ration for our cattle and has nutrition in that sense. In addition, we can also use the manure, as Margaret was saying, about the manure to become fertilizer again. So we can reuse in the pastures, we can regenerate the environment using the organic fertilizers. And in fact, I have a friend that goes around confinements and feedlots, and the feedlots pay them to use the manure so they can add few bacteria to make the organic fertilizer even more potent. So actually I was in their farm last week. It was really, really interesting to see all the industrial process they're doing. It's industrial, but it's open in the air. It's mainly about the fermentation process, and it goes even better with the fertilizer. We also have opportunities with energy, as Margaret was saying again, with biomethane, biogas, and etc. In fact, in January this year, I've been to Germany, and I saw a first tractor of New Holland that was powered by biomethane. And they say it has the potential to reduce from 25% to 40% of fuel. So it's more economically healthy. And on the other hand, we're also using bio to do that. And talking about also some fuels, there's also the SAF, the SAF, which is the Sustainable Aviation Fuel. There are a few ways of doing it, but basically they're talking about oil, organic oil, to make that sustainable fuel for planes. We're still going that way, but there's also a possibility. So with that being said, I also believe another strategy we have is sustainable intensification. What I mean by that, in Brazil, we have a different context. We have lots of lands that can still be restored if you only take degraded pasture and convert it with regenerative agriculture and good practices. We can take more and use less. So for example, irrigation. My dad says that in the planet we have lots of water, but the problem is that the water is not at the continent, right? So what we can do, we can restore the water that's coming from the rain. It doesn't stop the flow from the river, but we can still use it on the other crops. So in Brazil, we have the tropical climate, and it allows us to have 2 or 3 crops depending on the year. And sometimes if we use just the water, that if we just have the rational use of water, we can make more with the resources that we have than just with one crop. And why is that important? Because we are actually using the same soil that is there, the same land that is there, to produce more. So it's sustainable intensification, but it's still sustainable because we don't have to open more areas, we don't have to deforestate, so we are actually conserving it. And also we are using no-till systems, which means we're taking straws from the past cultures and we are keeping the soil healthy. So we are also using another bioproduct and keep the soil healthy with that system of no-tillage. On the other hand, in the cattle business, it's funny because we have a saying that of the cattle, the only thing we cannot utilize yet is the mooing, like the moo, because everything else we can use from the cattle. I see lots of people talking on how it's all about the meat, but in fact, lots of our products, they come from the cattle. I can do a little bit of this. For example, from the intestines, we can have surgical threads, we can have bracket strings, musical instruments. From the fat, we can have soap, candles. From the hair, we can have brushes. From the tendon and ligaments, we can have gelatin. From the blood, we can have vaccines, fertilizer, wood glue. From the stomach, we can have vitamin B. From the bones and horns, we can have batons, pins, knives, chess pieces, vases, bottles, glasses. From the leather, we can have balls, straps, clothes, gloves, bags, shoes. From the collagen, all sorts of cosmetics, gum, radiological films. From the brain, we can have another cosmetics as well, anti-wrinkle cream for us women. From the heart, we can also have flour. From the lungs, we can have even some medicine about anticoagulant. So there's a huge list, and just giving you a few examples on how we can use all these different kinds of byproducts of animals or products that we're using, and we have no idea. When we're only talking about animals, we're thinking about meat, but there's so much more than not consuming them, or it's just a waste. So how we can actually use those animals and make the best out of it with the best purpose. And last but not least, I'd like to say we have this big system in Brazil. It's called the Clean Field System. In Portuguese, it's called Sistema Campo Limpo, which is considered one of the largest, if not the largest, reverse logistic program of the world. So we take all the empty packaging of agricultural pesticides, and we just give them back with this reverse logistic system. We have special points to collect them, and it has the success because we have a strong involvement of all the environmental partners in the value chain. So we're talking about farmers, we're talking about retailers, cooperatives, manufacturers, and with the support with public authorities. There is specific legislation about it. So the sector defines the shared role and responsibility with people who are involved. And according to their website, and I just checked today again, 93, can you imagine the size of Brazil? Brazil has this huge logistic problems, but 93% of the plastic waste we have comes back and gets recycled. And only 7% it has incineration, ecological incineration. And this prevents contamination of the soil, of the surface water, and the groundwater. So we are reusing the plastic while preserving the environment. And I just like to say that I feel very grateful for this opportunity because I love showing how farmers can contribute and how we care about solving these common issues that we have in humanity. And I feel pretty much connected with our both continents in the south, the global south, and I hope we can contribute to find common solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Carolina. I know that as many of us have been experiencing tremendous challenges with our weather, the business goes on. Cows have to eat every day. They have to be milked every day. The animals need to be cared for every day. There's no holidays, is that right? And we recognize that the hard work that gets done sometimes goes unnoticed. But what's exciting is you're wonderfully young and excited and moving forward, and we love to see that because our world depends on a new generation of farmers checking in and coming in. And we used to say, and we still say, agriculture is should be a career of first choice for all nations, and that we're intent on making that happen. So thank you so much for your wonderful talk. Our next speaker is Lois Wright-Mort, who is a really amazing woman. She just is one of the more dynamic people I know. She's one of our board directors at Solutions from the Land. She is a emeritus professor of rural sociology in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Iowa State University. She's the author and co-author of 6 books, including Pathways for Getting to Better Water Quality, The Citizen Effect in Managing Mississippi and Ohio River Landscapes, among others. She has been a director of the USDA Sustainable Corn Project, and more importantly, she's a small-scale blueberry and multiple crop grower in Outwash Terrace Farm. This is her farm in Pierpoint, Ohio, and she does it all. She's pretty amazing. So, Lois, why don't you go ahead and let us know what you've been up to. Next set of slides.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
And now, after those, we're going to just have a quick Q&A, and then we'll lead up to our next speaker after that. But here's a rancher and farmer.
Okay, thank you, AJ. I want to just talk about farming, and AJ, forget some of the introduction that you gave, because this is my second or third career, and I want to talk about my small farm in Northeast Ohio. I retired about 7 or 8 years ago. I started this farm about 15 years ago, and it's primarily a blueberry red raspberry farm, but I really worked at having a whole diversified system, and that's what I want to share with you briefly. As you look at the screen right there, you'll see that my blueberries down in the left-hand side, you're looking at 3/4 of an acre of high bush blueberries, and the door is 4 feet by 8 feet high. That it's a double zipper door that we go in. It's designed particularly to keep out the spotted-winged Drosophila, and keeps out a few other things. There are other things it doesn't keep out, but it does a pretty good job of the insects. And then I want you to look over to the left, and you'll see my weather station, which is remote. It gathers all of the weather data, and then I also have remote sensing probes for both sense of soil moisture and soil temperature, and that beams directly into my house, so that I always know it within every 20 minutes that flips over. And if you want to know what it looks like in Northeast Ohio right now, if you go to outwashterrace.wordpress.com, it should come up if your website's working. But I want to frame this that I farm in Northeast Ohio, just south of Lake Erie, one of the Great Lakes in Ohio, so it's right on the Canadian-Ohio border. And it was created by the glacier, and as the Wisconsin glacier receded, it left behind, if you know anything about when glaciers melt, they drop out the big stones and elements. And then as it slows down, it begins to drop out gravels and sands and sediments. And my farm is on the east branch of the Ashtabula River, which feeds into Lake Erie. And so I only have, in this particular parcel, I only have 24 acres, but I have sands and soils, sands and sediments and gravels, and I also have clay soils. So I have a very diverse type of soils. And and the reason I mention that is because when we talk about climate change, the climate environment is a microenvironment that comes off of the lake. And so whatever's happening at the lake level, I actually get. And I think all of you, I don't know how many of you farm or you're paying attention to your region, but all of us have conversations with people that don't live where we are. And what do I say? I say, oh, it's cold. I've got 2 feet of snow. And I talk to AG, and he's in sunny California saying, oh, it's 80 degrees, and I'm picking green beans or something. So the climate is changing, but it's changing differently for farmers, not only within the United States, but across the whole world. And so one of the things that works for me and the diversified system that I have probably won't work nearly as well, or will need to be modified by other farmers. Okay, can we advance that? Okay, so here I've actually shown you, there's the east branch of the Ashtabula River. It's the headwaters, so you can see it varies in size. So it might look to you like a small creek, and it does get low during the summertime. But during the spring flows, it fills my bottomlands. The 3 acres within my high tensile fence that it has that solar power is the primary source of my income. I do co-farm with my brother about 20 acres, 8 hectares there of corn and soybean. And he is also the source of part of my circular system that I'll talk about in just a couple of minutes. What I'm especially pleased with is the wetland and the bottomlands that come with the river, because I'm tile drained, and that tile drained, the corn and soy are tile drained, and those tile run first of all into this wetland and becomes denitrified, and before it flows into the river. I do regular testing of both my tiles and also the river itself. If we could, let's see if I can do that now. Oh, okay, there we go. All right, so I want to ask the question, what does a smallholder farm look like when it uses this productive, efficient, nature-positive farm-level circular systems? Dr. Reed did a beautiful job of showing you what it looks like on the large scale across the region, but even across the region, they're made up of individual farms. Some of them are small, some of them are larger. And so one of the things when we think about policy or when we make decisions, we need to be thinking landscape level, but we have to remember that it's at the farm level where those changes need to happen. And what you're looking at here is a model that we've worked out that says that the farm consists of the kinds of farm activities, but I want you to see that green circle there is ecosystem services. And if we can move that, there it is right there, okay? And the ecosystem services overlaps the farm and the retained value that I'm hoping to do, but it also overlaps with the greater world beyond the farm. And that's really important when you think about how we as farmers manage our natural resources, our soil, our water, all of the things that the wildlife that we have, all can be retained value and can be used by the farm, but it also has implications for off-farm. And what I've done is just given you sort of a sample. Up in the upper portion is the wetlands that where many of the nutrients can be denitrified. You see, I have a wonderful collection of native flowers, turtles, birds. On the upper right-hand corner, you might be able to see that, but I have beavers that are always interested in taking down my trees as quickly as I plant them, so I fence them out. You see wild turkeys, and then you can see my blueberry field in the background. So what does the value of a circular systems to farmers? Whenever we talk about a new technology or something new that we want farmers to do, one of the first questions we have to ask is, does it make sense to a farmer? Can I use that system and actually be productive? Can I do all the things that I need to do in order to make a living and still be very environmentally friendly? And so we need to think about retained value as not being byproducts, but being co-products. The farm is I'm not just producing blueberries and red raspberries. I'm producing a whole set of other ecological services that come with the pollinators, that come with reusing some of the crops, recycling the water. And so when I think about what I'm doing, I think about what kinds of extra products co-products can I produce? And now what you're looking at is, you see my rain barrel in the middle, and I have a couple of them, and they collect a lot of the water. One of the things that doesn't show up here with my diversified system is that I actually do fruits and vegetables. I service wholesale to local grocery stores with blueberries and red raspberries, and then I sell at the local farmers market not only my blueberries and red raspberries, but I also sell a whole lot of value-added products. It includes honey from my bees. It includes some vegetables. I grow English cucumbers and a high tunnel, again for the same reason. It has that same netting that my blueberries have, so I can manage the striped cucumber beetle and some of the insect problems that I might normally have. Over to the right, you'll see my red raspberries have a problem with spotted wing Drosophila, but the pollination system, the pollination of red raspberries is sequential. It happens throughout the season. And so rather than covering them and then needing to purchase a pollinator, what you see there are hummingbird feeders. And some of the scientific research that Cornell University has done with red raspberries has shown that hummingbirds can eat almost 65% of the larvae of the spotted wing Drosophila. And so it's not 100%, but if I also manage it in another way in terms of keeping it picked clean and then also using the hummingbirds, it really solves a lot of my softness problem that would create a problem. But whenever you're growing a product, you still have waste of some sort. And in the upper right-hand corner, you see something called an augmentation box. And so a lot of my waste of berries that I can't sell, that I can't turn into jams and jellies, go into this augmentation box. And it is screened with a really fine screen, and it draws a parasitic wasp, which are a biological enemy of the spotted wing Drosophila. So I'm not there yet, but I'm eventually hoping that I would draw enough that will supplement the hummingbird system that I'm trying to do. I spend a lot of time when we talk about circularity. It's not just on-farm circularity. It really is community circularity. What you see is I have to heavily mulch my blueberries every couple of years. Those are the tree clippings, tree mulch that comes whenever our power companies go through and they trim our trees along the roadside. They give me the chippings if I'm nice to them, and I give them blueberries once in a while that I have that's recycled in the system. You see right below that is the manure that goes into some of the other products that I produce, cucumbers, cut flowers, and other vegetables. And the lower you see my red raspberries and the straw. Again, this is when I co-farm with my brother, and he raises cattle. So when he's raising oak straw and manure, so I have the opportunities for some of that as a byproduct. Down in the lower right is something called Bull Country compost. Because what I've been talking about now is very local community circularity. But this Bull Country compost is regional, and it is it's organic. It takes manure from many cattle farms and processes it, and then sells it as a product that others of us can use. And there, I think that should be close to the very last slide. That shows you what my farmer market looks like. Down at the bottom, you'll see some of my other products. I try to be opportunistic, your basil and parsley and some of those things. And then USDA has a program that is for our senior citizens, and they can actually get coupons, $5 coupons, totaling about $30 that they can bring to the farmers market. And they can bring me that coupon, and I can sell them a basket of blueberries for their nutritional health. So that works out really, really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lois, and it's amazing to know that on the days where you're working on all of these different crops, it's just amazing how much output could be harvested and put into place in this out of a single farm. And we know that the fruits and vegetables all over the planet is a wonderful nutrient-dense part of the diet that we know is coming for the world. We're going to jump actually to where we are behind because we got a little late getting into the room. We have a very special guest here today, is Kaveh Zahedi, who is the Director of FAO's Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Environment. Instead of reading a long, wonderful bio for him, I know we can find it. It is true that he started his career, he said, here with the UN at this facility, and we just welcome him, and he has some amazing insights of where we're headed and what's coming for us in the years ahead. Kaveh, please.
Eiji, thank you very much, and hello everybody. I'm an absolute gate crasher to this session. I came into it very late, but I came to it because I really wanted to sort of be here and show my support. And I'll talk a little bit from a slightly different perspective, because it's fundamental to have what you see on the screen, what we've just heard from the farmers, what's happening at the very local farm level. At the same time, we need to get the global level in sync as well, because only if these two levels are in sync can we scale up this approach, this circular bioeconomy approach, at the level we need it to confront the crises that we face, right? These are big crises. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about the loss of biodiversity. We're of course also talking about food security. So we have to take the circular bioeconomy out of the sort of the niche category into a much broader partner sort of delivery mechanism for very big challenges that countries are facing. Now, that's probably why, for us at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, we have been working on the bioeconomy for about a decade, but it wasn't until 2021 that all of the countries, the FAO members, actually decided that this was a pretty good thing, that they wanted to make the bioeconomy for sustainable food and agriculture what they call a key program priority area for the next decade. This basically elevated the sustainable circular bioeconomy amongst the top priorities of FAO, right? There's only about 20 priorities, and this is one of them. So this, I think, elevated it at the policy level in a way that it hadn't happened before. And it makes sense, because it means that now we look at the bioeconomy through the lens of the work we do on forestry, on fisheries, on aquaculture, crop and animal production, waste valorization, all of these, and all of these sort of areas where FAO is working, bioeconomy is emerging as sort of a vital cross-cutting approach that can play a big part, I think, in solving some of these interlinked global challenges, as I said, that cross over from biodiversity to climate to food security. Now, this potential is increasingly being recognized. So, although at the farm level, we probably feel, you're there on your own, right? But we see that increasingly this potential is being recognized. The review we did has shown that about 60 countries, over 60 countries and regions have actually developed their own bioeconomy related strategies. So they see this as an approach that they want to promote at the country level or sometimes at the state level. We also see this year, under the presidency of Brazil, the G20 having a special dedicated track on the bioeconomy initiative. So we are beginning to get traction at that policy level as well, as countries look for solutions to the multiple crises that they face. Of course, none of this can happen without the farmers. We've heard the pivotal role that the farmers play in any bioeconomy as the custodians in many, many ways, by embracing this sort of what we saw in the very first slide, the circular, the restorative, the regenerative practices. It is the farmers that are going to significantly contribute to some of these big global targets that we have, right? Global targets on sustainable use of biodiversity that we have from the Biodiversity Convention. Global targets in terms of building resilience that we have in the Paris agreements, etc., etc. But there's still a gap. You know, we still, as I say, are not seeing bioeconomy and the sustainable circular bioeconomy going to scale. So we do need to work together more, engaging farmers into the bioeconomy. We need more efforts in terms of increasing awareness. We need to provide better information. Financial support is a big one. There are upfront costs sometimes to turn in this direction. And there is a big technology and innovation element, right? I mean, we are talking about doing things in a different way. Some of those are old technologies we've somehow forgotten. Some of them are new ones that we need to bring into the farms to be able to really scale up the bioeconomy and ultimately, I guess, improve the market access for bio-based products, right? To make it really worthwhile for that transformation. Of course, this engagement, this transformation, the bioeconomy has to be cost effective. It has to enable farmers to actively participate in their core business while delivering multiple benefits. And I think that's what really is at the core of the bioeconomy. But many are still asking, but what exactly is the bioeconomy? It's sort of everything. It's feeling a little bit like a lot of the stuff that's been said before. And I don't think it is. And I think we did some work at FAO that looks at bioeconomy and what are, in essence, the sort of the principles that define a bioeconomy. You know, what counts and doesn't count as a bioeconomy. And we have a very nice piece of work that talks about the 10 principles and 24 criteria that all the stakeholders, from governments to private sector and others, can use to in essence, engage in the bioeconomy and ultimately, I guess, to be able to market what they're producing within a bioeconomy context. So really, that's all I wanted to share with you was my great enthusiasm for what's going on at the farm level. My great hope for what we're seeing, especially this year, of the elevation of circular bioeconomy at the global level. It's been there at FAO. We're now seeing it in the G20, and hopefully it's going to go even broader than that. Ultimately, it's still going to be, the pillar is at the farm level, and we hope that what we do is somehow symbiotic with what you're doing at the farm level. But you know, please count on us as a partner in this journey towards a circular bioeconomy, because we truly believe that it's urgently needed, and it's urgently needed because it can help us to deal with some of the big challenges that countries are facing at the moment. Big challenges that are, of course, at the core of the conversation across the way there at the UNEA as well. Thank you so much.
I know you have an appointment you have to get to in a short time here. There might be a room for a question if you have time.
Sure. And my colleague Isabel is online as well, so she's going to do a much better job of actually, you know, talking you through what in a structured way. Mine was like an enthusiastic blurt about the bioeconomy and some of the linkages to the global processes that we see. But happy to take questions if
Is there a burning question out there for Kami right now? And then if not, we can move forward. But I do have a question, of course. I think it's an exciting new way of thinking of agriculture in this relatively new century is when you look at agriculture through the lens of the Sustainable Development Goals, many of us kind of had an aha moment and saw that, wait a minute, you can't accomplish this SDGs if agriculture's not doing well on so many different category areas. Is that what I understand you just say just now with the same thing? The lens you look at agriculture is widened more than ever.
Probably. I mean, we cannot achieve the Paris Agreement targets on climate change on the mitigation or adaptation side of the equation without agriculture. We cannot achieve the global biodiversity framework that was passed last year, the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, without agriculture and without the sustainable use of biodiversity that is now embedded in the GBF. So yes, and we certainly can't achieve the SDGs more broadly until we look more at agriculture, or I would say agri-food systems, from the solutions lens. That's why I love so much your solutions from the lab. I really do want to steal that label from you. Because up until now, it's been very much about agriculture produces a third of greenhouse gas emissions. There's a lot of finger pointing. Agriculture is responsible for 70% of biodiversity loss. Much of it is true, but it's time that we also look at it in terms of the solution provision, because agriculture is also very much underinvested in when it comes to the provision of those very same solutions, whether it's through agroforestry or the many solutions that you're all aware of for climate, for biodiversity, and of course, don't forget for food security. You know, we still live in a world where over 700 million people live in hunger, and so we have to have this triple equation solved.
And I know in our country, we started always, it was always food insecurity, and now you're starting to hear it described as nutrition insecurity, which then goes to another category that you're busy working on at FAO. Is that correct? So I think it should. Ready to go then? Time-wise, do you think? Thank you so much for joining us. And again, we're excited to know that across the different platforms of the UN, that the concept of agriculture is being introduced at each one of the platform levels, because of that dynamic of cross-pollination, we'll call it, and cross ideation that's leading us into this century with a lot more hope instead of a lot of less pessimism, right? So I know, Isabel, you're on next. And Isabel specialized in environmental economics and bioeconomy and currently serves as a bioeconomy specialist at FAO. And with her expertise in project management and support, she's going to give us a little background about how we can, in these different projects, impact and how we can create reduction on the environment, all the different problems. So Isabel, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Thank you so much.
Can you hear me well? I take it as a yes.
Yes.
Great. I'm sharing my screen now. Great. Thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you for also the organizer of this incredible side event, the speakers, and also to Kave for his remarks and for setting the scene. I'm Isabel Binelli, I'm a bioeconomy specialist, and I'm here with you today to introduce you a bit quickly on our work on circular bioeconomy for food and agriculture in FAO. So I always like to get started with few data, and I think it's relevant for the conversation you are having now, actually, because I really think it's important to remind ourselves that actually 30% of global population has suffered some form of malnutrition in 2020, but at the same time, 13% of our agricultural production is lost every year, and 70% of our food is wasted. So the question is, how are we going to cope with the fact that global food demand will grow by around 60% by 2050? How to answer to this without depleting our natural resources, depleting our ecosystems and our environment? So as Kave has already mentioned, that's why FAO has made the sustainable bioeconomy, as elevate actually sustainable bioeconomy as a priority area, one of the 20 priority area. But actually FAO work on sustainable circular bioeconomy started back in 2015. And this priority area has a strong focus indeed on achieving SDG 12, so sustainable production and consumption. Many speakers before me already stressed why bioeconomy is so relevant for these challenges. It's not just substituting fossil-based resources with biological resources, using waste to produce new products and release pressure on other natural resources, but is also producing and consuming in a more environmental friendly way and create local opportunities through circular and inclusive value chains that not just deliver environmental benefits that we all are here for, but also deliver social economic opportunities. But in FAO, we think that to unlock this potential of bioeconomy to provide these benefits, we need to ensure that bioeconomy is developed in a sustainable way, because bioeconomy by itself doesn't entail sustainability per se. So our work is around ensuring the sustainability. We have developed, as Kaveh already mentioned, the principles and criteria that we apply at policy level, but also at technology level to ensure that bioeconomy is developed in a sustainable way. And circularity is indeed a huge part of the sustainability of the bioeconomy. Circularity that, as John already mentioned and expressed perfectly, is circularity at each stage of the value chain to keep the value as much as possible in the loop, but can be also cascading the use of biomass. So prioritizing the use of biomass according to the highest priority, so food security, and then cascading down its uses. But what does it mean in our real work? So we work at two main levels, at global policy level, and we support countries, which was actually the main share of our work in the past few years. We've been supporting countries in developing national bioeconomies through dedicated bioeconomy strategy. So we have supported Malaysia, Namibia, and Uruguay. But at the same time, we try to collect lessons learned from our work, from our experience, and consolidate them in tools that countries and also local stakeholders can use to develop bioeconomy system. So the first important one, I think, is going to be published soon, is the Bioeconomy Toolbox, in which all the steps to develop a bioeconomy and the sub-steps are contained in this tool. So from stakeholder mapping and engagement until the mapping of bioeconomy potential, to the drafting of the strategy, the implementation plan, and the monitoring and revision system. And in synergy with this tool, we have created a global interactive tool, is the Global Bioeconomy Dashboard, in which we track bioeconomy development at policy level around the world. So how many countries have a bioeconomy strategy in place, what countries are developing one, and also how those countries, while developing a bioeconomy, are also contributing to sustainability objectives in terms of conserving biodiversity, mitigating and adapting to climate change. So from our data, actually around 21 countries and 3 regions have bioeconomy dedicated strategy, 40 more have bioeconomy related strategy, and actually 17 countries are developing their own strategy. And I'm happy to see that actually all strategies contain actions related to circularity, with few countries that are championing this, and more than 30% of their strategy rely actually on circular bioeconomy. And then not just this, because circularity aspects of bioeconomy are also really stressed in many national biodiversity, climate, and food system policies and reporting instruments submitted to the conventions. So from our perspective, we can really see that bioeconomy is blooming globally. But then this was the macro enabling environment. We also work on the ground to implement bioinnovations that are not just provide just environmental benefits, but also socioeconomic benefits. So we have, for example, the first ever GEF-funded bioeconomy project, which will start implementation soon in Pakistan, in which we tackle unsustainable practice in the banana value chain. So usually banana residues, the stems, are burnt on the field. So we compensate farmers for avoiding this practice, and we support them instead in turning this waste into bio-based textile to substitute unsustainable cotton and leather production. We have another global project coming now, actually still under refinement, but which will take place in 4 countries. And we will identify and test 4 bioinnovations on 4 selected value chains to reduce waste, reduce pollution, and provide social economic benefits. But I think for for our event today, the most relevant example on which I would like to spend just a few minutes is this project. Is BioDAF, takes place in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire, and was actually developed under request of the district of Abidjan to ask FAO support for three main issues. So the huge quantity of organic waste produced by the city, the lack of locally available and produced agricultural inputs, and the creation of employment opportunity. So together with FAO country office in Côte d'Ivoire, we came up with this bio-innovation that is really peculiar. It harnesses the larvae of the black soldier fly, which is, many of you may be familiar with it, is similar to a house fly, it's just bigger, but has the potential of turning really quickly, just in 14 days, bio-waste into proteins for animal feed. So we have built a 1,000 square meter farm where every day we bring organic waste from local markets. The larvae convert the waste into proteins for animal feed, and the only byproduct of this process is the larvae frass, which is actually packed and sold as a really powerful organic fertilizer to urban and peri-urban farmers at a much cheaper price than conventional inputs, then produce the food that is back in the system again. This is a really small project, but the impacts are huge because every day we bring on the farm around 1 ton of organic waste, and this ton is turned into 120 kilos of dried larvae and 200 kilos of organic fertilizer every day. At the same time, it creates local employment opportunities for local people, and the farm acts also as a farm field school where we train people to produce their own unit of black soldier fly. So I think this is a really impactful example, as is not just greening a city, reducing waste, pollution, emissions as well, is employing people and is empowering people, and especially is providing farmers with locally available inputs, which are more sustainable and especially are cost effective because cheaper than conventional agricultural inputs, let's say. I'm really mindful of time. So I also want to have time for questions for everyone. So I thank you very much, and I leave it back to our moderator.
Isabel, so much, and I will hope we have a little bit of time for questions. I know that your description of a toolbox here in 2024 is so much different than 1925 when we started this discussion. The changes in our world are so unbelievable, and whether it's a virtual toolbox, because we do have access to all the knowledge in the world on our handhelds, it's an amazing time. And no better person to help us understand how that time is moving forward and needs to move forward is our next speaker, is Ernie Shea, who is the president of Solutions from the Land and the president of CEO of Natural Resource Solutions, LLC. He's formerly the CEO of the National Association of Conservation Districts. He was the Assistant Secretary of Agriculture for Agricultural Development, Resource Conservation, state of Maryland. And I'd like him to go ahead and bring us home, because we've had ranchers, we've had educators, and we've also had government stepping up to see what this new agriculture really is doing and what the future looks like. Go ahead, Ernie.
Great. Well, thank you very much, AG. Thank you all for coming. I hope you found this to be inspirational and forward-looking and talking about where we go next. If you could advance the slide deck, we just got 1 or 2 slides. So as we've been talking about the circular bioeconomy in this room right here, across the campus, the circular economy is being debated and discussed by the member states in terms of one of the core elements of our resolution under consideration. And it's struggling. They're having some difficulty trying to find a consensus. And I think the opportunity that we have is to help deliver, go back one, that we can help deliver the good news story that this is actually something that is going to benefit all of the globe through all participants. And as you think about the bioeconomy touching and the solutions that we bring forward from agriculture, touching people's lives as described through the Sustainable Development Goals, where we're striving to end hunger, we're striving to solve the climate crisis, we're striving to improve livelihoods, and on those 70 development goals. The good news is that farmers and agriculture can lead the way in delivering these outcomes. And it's time, we think, for the voice of farmers to be elevated in this discussion. It's one thing for academics and policymakers and government officials to debate the semantics, but it's another thing when they're hearing from farmers from across the world why this approach makes sense. And it makes sense, first of all, because it's helping me as a farmer. It's helping my family. It's helping my local community. It's delivering outcomes that benefit you and global stakeholders. So we think there's, excuse me, an opportunity to tell our story and to use it to build a movement, to build a circular bioeconomy, agricultural economy alliance that can help drive this forward. And one first step that we're taking is to writing a white paper that will feature 10, 12, maybe 14, 15 farmers who are experimenting with circular approaches to farming and have them tell their stories of what they're experiencing, what they're benefiting from, what they're challenged by. But it would be a very powerful way to reinforce the importance of maintaining this approach. So right now, this is in the early stages of development. We are recruiting farmers who have an interest in being part of this conversation. So if you know of any producers in your region of the world that have an interest in this approach to farming, have been experimenting with it, have a passion for it, we would really appreciate if you would introduce us to those producers of all sizes, of all scales, of all types of production. And what we'll be doing then is listening to them and discerning what their core messages are, incorporating them into a white paper that will be lifting up success stories of circularity from farmers in every hemisphere and every region of the world. So this is a project that we've undertaken for this year. And step one is to get the right farmers to step up. So we need your help with that. And I think the next slide, my closing slide, can at least give you my name and email address as one point of contact, but we would really welcome your participation. If not in the development of this white paper, the advancing of the story in however many ways you can, whether it's in farmer to farmer knowledge sharing within your own communities, whether it's special forums that we can help put on, whether it's a speakers bureau that we can help organize and help farmers tell their stories in your region or around the world. There's lots of ways that we as farmers can help elevate this discussion. And I'll end with what we believe is most important in any transformational change. And that is that farmers have to be at the center of the conversation. And if they aren't, if it's about other communities of interest, actors, governments, telling farmers how to farm, we're not going to go very far. So this is our opportunity to combine as a movement, as an alliance, and we would be honored and welcome you all to be part of this conversation because it's our conversation. It's not any one player. So AG, thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Ernie. Quick show of hands, how many farmers are in the room? Just to see, there's a lot more than normal. How many of you have or know a family member who's a farmer? If I ask that same question in the United States, 1/10 of the hands go up. We're down to less than 2% of the population in the United States are in farming and make a living out of farming. And what's happened with that is people forget where food comes from. It's very fresh on the minds of so many countries that it's the role that agriculture is going to play moving forward. I mentioned earlier a career of first choice. It's going to be an exciting and dynamic place to be, especially with the toolbox as full as it is. It doesn't mean you're going to use every tool in the toolbox. It just means that you have more options to be successful. Questions out there? We have a few minutes, but I know the next group is going to be outside, and we were suffering from the previous group not moving fast, so we lost a few minutes. But question, anybody? Yes, back here. Speak up loudly because we don't have a microscope or a microphone. I'm sorry.
Jumbo. I'm Derek from Kenya. I'm young farmers. The problem with the young people, we need to do some like smart farming, like advanced technology, and the problem is finance and lack of friendship. So how can you?
So that's exactly what we're looking for, are young farmers with a passion that want to be involved, that have a story to tell. And I think the more we can put the next generation of farmers at the forefront of the discussion, the more attention we'll get. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here. So thank you for stepping up and wanting to be part of the conversation.
Other questions out there? Just back here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Sobiambo from Kenya. I have a question to Dr. John from the Center for Digital Agriculture. What are some of the technologies that can be accelerated and used to manage soil health, particularly in Africa, where soil is characterized as highly weathered and poor in quality, and very highly also valuable within even a small large scale. So manage that, because that's one of the challenges we are having and one of the basis for agricultural production.
I'm not sure that John's still with us.
Yeah, could somebody repeat?
So go ahead, we'll have to, that's right here though.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
One of my most valuable technologies has been, oh, excuse me, I'll be real quick. One of the most valuable technologies that I've needed for my fruits and vegetables has been my weather station. Because I can track the amount of moisture that's in my soil. I can track the amount of, so I know whether I need irrigation or not. I can track the temperature, so I know whether I've got a problem. As you know, fruits and vegetables are extraordinarily vulnerable to high, low temperatures and those kinds of things like that. So I would say the most valuable technology that I have on my farm, which is this remote sensing weather station, which is not super expensive. So I don't know, maybe John wants to add some additional comments to that.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Excuse me.
Okay, great. I think the really interesting thing with the technology stack we have today is that there are different layers of technology that can be applied. So, for example, in North America, there's a lot of technology that's around automation of machines, but it's also possible to just leverage information, and more people have connectivity through cell devices and mobile apps, and that information can be one of the vectors that help build technology for farmers that only have that basic access, or through networking in communities to help provide information that's necessary to build some of the transformation. So I don't think there's any one technology. We have to understand what's appropriate for each of the markets that we're in all over the world, and be flexible, because the layers of technology are enablers.
Dr. Reed, thank you so much for joining us today, and our other speakers as well. Thank you so much. We were going to have to run. I know there's another panel right behind us, but good luck to all of you through the year. And again, thank you for your comments, and everybody around the platform. As a good courtesy, we're going to play around and let that next week come on in. Thanks, everybody, for your attendance.
Thank you.
How we can screen out.